Hey, beautiful seekers, and welcome to our moon magic discussion for this Cancer new moon happening on July 9th. As you can see, I'm sitting on the floor of my apartment. That's just where I wanted to be today, having some tea. I've been really getting the call consistently and regularly to just show up more in whatever state I am in, and to be a lot more improvisational and a lot more just open and a lot less like curated and a lot less, presenting. It's just like really pulled together and in teacher mode, which I don't think I've been like inauthentic, but I just want to be more relaxed and open. It just feels so much better. You all always share such beautiful things and show up every month to sit with me, and it just feels like I want to do the same. For me, it's like doing astrology and working with it. For me, it's not a tool of like figuring out how to control ourselves more or control the world more. It's not a tool of like figuring out how to define ourselves and wrap ourselves up into these tidy boxes and put labels on ourselves. It's the other way around, really. For me, I think of astrology as a way to explore ourselves and to explore our transmutation and explore how we shift and change in life. I don't think of it as a tool of fear or of repetition, but more as a tool of exploration of the possibilities of who we can become, and like all the surprises and gifts that we have from deep within that you just want that chance to be shared. And I know for me, part of that is just relaxing a little bit more and letting myself be myself wherever I'm at in my process. I had kind of a long night last night because I went into my personal haunted house. That's how I describe that part of ourselves that goes into that alternate world where things are really scary and unsafe. And we each have our version of that, depending on what we've experienced in life and seen or had modeled to us throughout life, right? It's that place that we go. It's kind of this alternate spooky place. It's got like spooky lighting and everything's scary and everything's a threat. I went there, I'm realizing I'm feeling really vulnerable about my big life shifts happening this year, including immigrating, including starting a whole new chapter of my life. It really is so big, and most of the time I'm just like, because I have no doubt about it, I just kind of like, I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm doing. I don't sit there ever like questioning it, but I realize that I'm feeling really vulnerable and really like I'm having to trust in the bigness of it all and trust in myself to do all of this in a way that is very, I have to get to the point of surrender because, if I don't trust in it completely, then that part of my mind that wants to keep me safe and like control everything is going to try and take over, and that doesn't really work. So it's been an interesting night coming into our chat today. But I'm really excited about this new moon, and it actually leads me into what I was talking about with exploring who we're becoming and not getting too caught up in, a definition of ourselves or a way of talking about ourselves that we feel like is kind of set in stone or is just how we're dealing with things now. This moon is very healing. It's new moon in Cancer is always going to be a really nice placement because the moon is at home in Cancer. So it's amplifying like our emotional truth and our emotional integrity and letting us like hear from the inside out what it is that we want to bring out into the world, right? And new moons are such a great place to check in with ourselves, check in with our wishes, our desires, our where we are in the process. So this moon really holds us to do that. And the sun and moon are here together, 18 degrees of Cancer, and they're very loosely sextiling Uranus and Taurus at 14 degrees. So this sextile is just gorgeous because they converse together. Like these two are just pouring energy into each other. And it's a really interesting combo, but one I think that works really well. We have Uranus and Taurus, which is going to be revolutionizing, wanting to be free-spirited, do things from a different perspective, see things from a different perspective, be open to the possibilities, be open to surprise of all kinds. In Taurus, this is quite a nurturing placement in many ways, while it does ask us big questions. It's also a place that's asking us to trust that inner knowing more. And then here sextiling with this new moon in its home sign of Cancer, that is helping us dream of new things and trust our internal guidance system. So it's a mix of surprise and knowing, but it's kind of like, our soul always tells us what's right. And sometimes when we get that message from our soul, it is a surprise, I think, to get that call, to get that impulse, to get that little poke that you didn't really see coming, or maybe you kind of did, but you didn't really want to acknowledge it. So I think any information that's coming to light when it comes to this kind of moon, when we're sitting there with ourselves and feeling through it, is going to be information that's not like you didn't know it. It's just that this is a great time to maybe really witness that part of yourself that wants to be seen and known. There's also something really interesting going on with Venus in Leo. Venus is having a lot of conversations during this moon. Venus is at 15 degrees of Leo, and she's very quickly approaching Mars at 17 degrees of Leo, so they're in a conjunction basically during this new moon. Venus is also squaring Uranus and opposes Saturn. And this is really interesting to me because Venus has so much to do with self-love. Venus has so much to do with like the deep self-love we have for ourselves, feeling safe within ourselves, which is really the most essential piece of the puzzle in life. Feeling safe within ourselves is so huge. So Venus is getting fueled by Mars, which is a very passionate, very excited energy. She's squaring off against Uranus, which is challenging how we feel that safety. And she's opposing Saturn, which is also challenging what is really good for us, what is really working for us. You can see how like there are questions coming up about the way we're moving through our lives, and is it serving us, and does it feel true to our souls? Does it feel true to feeling safe within ourselves? Are we listening to what our inner guidance is telling us, or are we pushing it to the side, trying to make other people happy, or trying to be what other people expect us to be so that they like us, or suppressing our emotions, or trying to kind of be in control of all the different bits and pieces. The square with Uranus and the opposition to Saturn here is asking us to get really honest with ourselves and to strip back to the essentials of our self-love. Now, with all of this going on, generally speaking, like I said, this is a very positive new moon. The moon itself is just doing this beautiful sextile. It's not really getting involved in a lot of this other energy. And it's a time of deep inner reflection. And the message that came up for me when I sat down with this new moon is, this is the big message. It's important to have a willingness to see ourselves from different perspectives, and to see our life and our life story from different perspectives, and to notice where we have resistance to positive, wonderful, beautiful stories that we could be telling about ourselves, right? Like, we so often have resistance to simple stories like, this job can be easy for me, or it's easy for me to feel safe in the world, or I'll always know what to do next, or I will always do the next right thing. We may feel more comfortable saying, well, I'm just shy and I don't know how to start that. That's a more familiar story for so many of us. But the expansive, lighter story would be, I have so many different aspects of myself. I am sometimes introverted, but I'm also curious. I'm also inventive. I'm also capable. I also know how to take a step when I need to take it. And when I do, things work out for me. You know, this new moon is going to challenge us to be willing to see ourselves from a different perspective. And what I mean by different perspective, I think, is we want to question and challenge those parts of ourselves, or that way that we see ourselves, that has to do with, well, this is just who I am, and I'm not capable, it's too much for me. And it's important to know our own limitations. It's important to have healthy boundaries. I'm not asking us to all suddenly, overturn our innate preferences and desires in life just to try and be something else. But what I am saying is, sometimes we tell stories just because they're familiar, but they're not necessarily truly who we are. And this is a great moon to just be willing to maybe open yourself up to seeing yourself from a different perspective. That you are having fun, that you're feeling social, that you're feeling curious, that you're feeling free, that you're feeling light. Those might be really nice things compared to like maybe feeling like I'm drained. I feel hollow inside. This pandemic has kind of sucked the life out of me. The more that we tell ourselves that, the more it starts to feel like a very real lived experience. So this is a great time, if you have had a really stressful last year, which so many of us have, this is a wonderful moon to kind of really, really intentionally choose the way you're seeing yourself, choose the way you're defining yourself from this moment forward. And this is where I was saying, with astrology, we so often use it to box ourselves in and say, well, I'm just this way. And in reality, we all have these different aspects of ourselves. We all have an analytical aspect. We all have a super psychic, emotive aspect. We all have a social, lovable aspect. And we all have a shy or defensive aspect that wants to hide a little bit. We have all of these aspects in ourselves. So which ones are feeling like they want some time in the sun? Which ones are ready to step up to the plate? And are we willing to put down some of the heavier stories that we've been carrying with us through the winter and spring here in the Northern Hemisphere and choose some new ones? Because it's always important to kind of renew our relationship with that inner dialogue and to really make sure we're honoring ourselves. And this doesn't only apply to that new moon aspect, this also applies to that Venusian self-love aspect that is getting challenged by Uranus and Saturn, to say, what am I saying to myself? How am I talking about myself? Am I willing to see myself in a more positive light? Am I willing to see my life in a more positive light? Am I willing to challenge my haunted house and say, hey, you don't get to come in here and cause me fear? That's a really big part of this new moon. I just wanted to say something else as like a general note. I think about the intensity of the world and the intensity of things going on in the world at any given point. There's a lot that goes on in this physical world that we are in together. There's a lot of really dark and heavy things that happen. And I was thinking about this interesting thing that we kind of have to do as seekers and as people who are conscientious and want to be a part of this world in a positive way. I was thinking how we have to hold two things to be true at the same time, and it's a little tricky because yes, it's important to acknowledge and be empathetic to other people's pain and loss and sorrow, and to be able to witness all these different ways of living and their challenges. People who are discriminated against, or who are going through war zones, or just environmental chaos. All of these things that are, very overwhelming sometimes to think about and look at, right? Like, it's important for us to be empathic to that. It's also so important, and here's the weird, like, dynamic. It's also so important that we value our joy and our happiness inside. It's also so important that we don't replicate stories that keep hurting us. And so I think sometimes this can be a little tricky because, you're empathic, you're seeing all these things happening in the world, and it feels like a disjointed thing to then be like, I'm just going to think joyful, happy thoughts about myself. It feels like we don't deserve to do that if we're really going to be empathic people in the world. But I just want to take a moment to say it's so important to be willing to talk to yourself and to embrace beautiful things happening for yourself. I think it's even more important if you are somebody who is feeling for others, caring about the world. It's so important that you invest that self-championing energy into yourself because, and I was going to start shuffling cards. 3 of Pentacles. Interesting. I'm going to pull one more, I think. 2 feels like a good number for this. An 8 of Pentacles. Very grounded energy. You know what that makes me think about? And the bottom of the deck, I couldn't resist. 2 of Cups. Very Cancer new moon vibes right there. These pentacles make me think about intentionality. In both cases here, we have people working at their craft, what they love to build and create in the world. and showing up to it every day and having conversations about it and really committing to that craft. And I would say that it is a craft in and of itself to choose the way we construct the way we talk to ourselves. It is a craft. It is an art form, truly, because it starts off, when you begin, it's kind of like any skill set. When you begin, you might start with some really basic affirmations, which is great. Like, that's awesome. And, you got to start somewhere. So, you might just do some simple, really approachable, affirming things for yourself. But as you keep getting into the craft of choosing to care about how you feel and choosing your joy and choosing to be fully present and just being who you are in the world, the more is revealed to you. And the more you can start to get to these really cool places where you get to navigate what you connect with and what you don't connect with. For me, the Three of Pentacles and the Eight of Pentacles speaks to the craft of that. It speaks to showing up to really decide. You're going to let these beautiful things happen. You're going to let yourself feel beautiful inside. You're going to let yourself create with others. You're going to let beautiful things come through you. You're going to let yourself help others. You're going to let yourself shine bright. You're going to let yourself shine with that luminous spirit. It is a craft. It is a dedication. It is something that you have to kind of make your number one priority every day in your life. The thing is with that, when we do that, we start showing up to the things that really matter on the practical level as well. These aren't mutually exclusive things. They work hand in hand. Now I couldn't resist this Two of Cups at the bottom of the deck. It was just staring at me. This is a very love-based moon as well, with the new moon in Cancer, so loving, all that Venusian energy working with us in Leo, which is very passionate, very sensual. It makes me think about receptivity in love as well, and it can be in love partnerships. It can also be in our friendships, in our community, and with ourselves. And we so often are resistant to receiving the full embrace of love, even when we think we're pretty open to it. So I would also say with this new moon, challenge yourself to notice where you've put up little barricades, where you've put up little screens to keep the light and the joy flowing through you and the love. And it doesn't have to be these big self-sabotaging, dramatic things. I mean, we all have our different versions of that. These can be very subtle little points where we just pull back a little bit, or we just shut down a little bit, where we just have that little voice that says, oh, that's too much. I'm not allowed to have that. This moon is going to ask you if you want to keep those barricades up, or if you want to gently let the rain, I'm gonna get all symbolic here. You're gonna gently let the rain wash away that sandstone and let yourself be big, which I realize is scary and vulnerable. Believe me, I realize that in so many ways. And I struggle with these questions too, all the time. And like I said, I went to my haunted house last night, and in that haunted house, there are plenty of things that are said there, like I'm not safe, like I'm not financially stable, how am I going to know how things are going to work out? Maybe it'll all just fall apart. I have my own version of the haunted house, and when I go there, all those barricades go up that say you're not allowed to just be yourself, happy in life. And that's a problem, right? To say that to yourself regularly. It's so important to just be like, I am who I am. Here I am. And that's not to say to just be like, well, I am who I am, and I'm going to step on everybody's toes and be a dick, and everybody has to deal with it, because that's a misapplication of this lesson. I'm almost always speaking to empathic, sensitive people who want to show up more into the world. I'm not speaking to egotistical people who don't respect other people. So let's just be clear. But it's like, we're allowed to shine and just be ourselves and relax a little bit, take the barricades down. And I think this new moon is absolutely leading us in that direction and recommitting to hearing our souls, recommitting to the craft of living a soulful life, recommitting to living and crafting a life. And that just means showing up. It doesn't mean, presenting a certain way. It means just showing up, crafting our relationship to our soul, taking moments where we feel that deeper connection and seeing what happens next. So important in this world. We need more of that. Because people who are actually listening to their souls are able to show up for others in a healthy way that is sustainable. And that's so powerful and big. So this new moon is asking us to do some big things. I hope I stayed coherent through this whole thing, because I'm feeling so passionate about it, and there's so much to say, and sometimes I'm just like, I don't even know how to say it all. Thanks for sitting with me, you guys. I'm going to be doing my big activation on the new moon in Cancer on my Patreon. We do that for every single moon, and it's a beautiful space if you're looking to connect with this energy a little deeper, where I really give you like tools and practices and meditations and ways to connect with yourself that can really amplify this energy and help you get in alignment with it. So I'd love to see you there if you are interested in joining me. I'd really love to see you there. I'd love to see you here. So I'll see you. I'll leave all my links so you know where to find me on the internet below. And I'm sending you guys so much love. Have a gorgeous new moon in Cancer.